Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new friend, Lanier Burton of From Scratch Comics. We're here to break down Helms Cross and everything in between. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream, my friend.
I'm doing good, Cody. How you doing, man? First and foremost, thanks for having me on here, and thanks to everybody out there watching and supporting this man and his hustle. You know what I'm saying? This is history in the making right here.
Hey, the hustle's the most important part, right? We have Elena over on Twitch stopping in to say good morning. Good morning, Elena. Thank you for joining us bright and early. Speaking of hustle, we are talking with one of the biggest underdogs of the indie community, and hustle's your middle name. It has to be. I'm looking at your comic catalog, and holy crap, you have been pumping out work for quite some time. So let's start diving into your history as a indie creator. You know, where did it all begin?
It all started from originally I was doing music and stuff, right, in like 2019 and whatnot. I was gonna move to Atlanta. Long story short, by the way, I was gonna move to Atlanta, you know, to be a part of the music scene or whatever. When we got there, I wasn't really feeling it like that, and I'm like, oh god, what am I really gonna do, right? So then by the time that I got back to Wisconsin here, I had this idea for true science fiction, which would be my first comic book. And then ever since I put that out, it just took a life of its own, you know.
So what was
Jay-Z
it like?
has a line where he says, this ain't the life I chose, but rather the life that chose me. That resonates with me now, because I feel like this chose me. I wasn't necessarily looking for it, but it just kind of happened.
No, absolutely. And I feel that too. That's something I think is, you know, once you kind of find like what you're meant to do, it's the rest is cake, right? How was it from going from Wisconsin to LA? That seems like two different like worlds.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Atlanta.
Or Atlanta. My apologies.
Oh, no, it's fine. Atlanta, I mean, you know, it's pretty, I got family there. It's not that dissimilar from Milwaukee. So, you know, it wasn't that crazy. So
breaking into comics, I'm like, did you have any history like coming up with scripts or paneling, or did you just kind of full send it?
Prior to me making comic books, and a little bit when I was still doing music in like 2013 to 15 or whatever, I was making films. So I was a director. So I was doing cinematography. I was writing the scripts. I was doing just about everything. And you can still see my work on my YouTube channel as well. I made 2 short films. So yeah, I've had experience with writing and just kind of figuring things out and knowing how to lay things out and storyboarding. I do all the storyboards for my works too. So I just know in my mind like how I want something to look, because I still got that director's edge in my head.
Yeah, you know yeah. So what did your short films look like? What were they about?
So my first one that you guys can see on there is called Meanwhile. It's like a crime drama film. The character Sylvia, she takes over her family's mob, their little gang or whatever, and then there's some resistance to that. And it was shot on a horse ranch and all this other stuff. It was all free. You know, I know how to, you know.
Yeah, finagle it, you know. I get it.
And then my second one is called Stage Master. We shot that in a theater in Madison, Wisconsin, also for free. Shouts out to them. And that one's more or less like a parody on like you know, overacting and, you know, just like the eccentricities of like play directors. And, you know, it's a fun time.
No, absolutely. So what's like some of the biggest like transitions from coming from film to comics, would you say? Like, was there any big hurdles for you to overcome?
No, not really. Because I've always had, even when I was a child, I always had a very overactive imagination. And I would always watch like the bonus features on like these like my favorite TV shows, the DVDs and stuff. So I'd always watch the behind the scenes, and I'd always watch and listen to how they created things, like how they do storyboards and stuff like that.
I always skip that stuff, man. Maybe I need to start paying attention more. That was always the thing I skipped first.
Yeah, as a kid, like I would really watch that. I would watch it with the audio commentary. Specifically, it started with Samurai Jack. I would buy those DVDs because I love Gendy Tartakovsky. And I would literally like sit and watch every episode with audio commentary. I would watch all the bonus behind the scenes things, how they did the storyboarding, everything. And I just absorbed it. And, you know, when I came into my own creatively, I used those techniques that I learned from what they were talking about and what I was seeing and stuff like that.
That is so awesome. I love. We have Mavis Games over on Twitch as well, stopping in to say keep it geekly. Good morning, Mavis. Thank you for joining us as well. I'm just loving this mindset so well. So you started creating comics in 2019 with True Science Fiction, but that wasn't your first book. You actually came out with two other issues, so a 3-issue run in 2019, and then Give Me the Loot Volume 1 and 2 and B-sides as well. So give us a little bit of a breakdown of what those are about.
So Give Me the Loot is more like my it's my comedy. It's an homage to like old comic strips from like way back in the day. It stars Robbie. He's a thief. He likes to steal things, but ironically, a lot of times he's the one that gets stole on, and it's just funny. Like it's just comedic, like old timey kind of humor, slapstick comedy. Very very. It's just amazing. I love that little character. As for B-sides, that's my sci-fi story. It's so if True Science Fiction is the A side, then this is the B side of that. So they both exist in the same universe, though they're operating on different planes.
I like that concept a whole lot. And so with all these, you're the writer, but you had to find different artists. How was that journey for you, reaching out, finding people to begin like drawing these ideas that were, bubbling up in your head?
I love the idea of it. I love working with new people all the time because they bring something out of you and you bring something out of them. That's perfect for whatever particular project that you need. So like, of course I do have some frequent collaborators, but for a majority of my career, I like to just work with new people all the time because it's just magic, And I think that comes from me coming from the music industry too. You meet so many people, and like I was a producer, so I made a lot of different projects for different artists, whether they were in Germany or Atlanta or whatever. I would always like tailor my beats to whatever their musical style was, and I liked working with new people because they made me change what I was doing, and they brought to me new skill sets. So I always bring that mentality to comics too. So like I'll work with people that people haven't given a shot to yet, or they're still getting fresh or whatever the case. Cause I just love all these different styles. I enjoy what my collaborators do, and I really appreciate them a lot.
Yeah. I love that you're willing to give a shot to anyone who's like even new. You're really embracing that underdog, mentality. What inspires you to do that? I mean, that seems like it's such a big risk.
What inspired me to do that exactly? Like work with people that cause I mean shit, like not too long ago that was me, like I would be like when I first started making music, like it was just me, like I didn't know what I was doing, but I was geeked to like want to do something with somebody else to test skills and stuff like that. And steel sharpens steel, and like I don't see why people would be adverse to working with someone new. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. You always want to give somebody a shot.
No, absolutely. And I mean, this interview had to have been one in the making, because that's like kind of like exactly my mentality. Like for me, like I've heard some people like, oh well, you'll just take on anyone. Like no, it's not. To me, it's not just anyone. If you have a book, you're someone. So you're not just anyone to me. If you have if you have a book, you deserve a spotlight, and I want to be that guy that gives you that. So I love that you're like on the opposite end, like in the creating aspect of it, essentially doing the same thing. That's such an awesome mentality. So diving into 2020, I noticed that we came up with a new title as well. So Crime Capital, excuse me. What was Crime Capital about?
So Crime Capital is like my like crime vigilante kind of story. So it stars Robert Rockwell. Him and his partner get into a scuffle with a villain, but the villain ends up having the partner kill himself. So then Rockwell is just sent through the spiral of just chasing after this guy, and he's just trying to do his damnedest to get him. And like a lot of that was born from my love of Batman and Daredevil. particularly Daredevil Born Again. I love that book a lot. And I just wanted to make my own version of that kind of stuff, like the classic, like just like street superhero kind of shit.
No, yeah,
So,
absolutely. So, what, like, speaking of that, what would you say some of your inspirations were for creating comics? What was some of the influences you took when starting your journey in writing and everything?
so for comics, I gotta say it was a lot of Marvel, particularly like the old Silver Age kind of stuff. So from like the 70s and 80s and things like that. Not particularly into the 90s stuff at all, and the 60s too. I love 60s, 70s, 80s Marvel. I love Shonen Jump.
Hmm.
I love DC characters and stories here and there.
The 90s were such a weird year for like superheroes, right? Everyone was like super ultra buff.
Dude, I'm sorry, guys. I don't like none of that 90s stuff at all. Like, I don't have. I'm like, no thanks. Because I feel like in the 80s, so I was reading Iron Man Armor Wars, and it's writing like that. But I'm like, they're really striking a nerve.
Hmm.
Because they're writing in a time where it's the Cold War, tensions are high. They have something to write about. There's a lot of substance. There's a lot of these characters that we knew from the 60s at that time are like abandoning their old costumes or forging new identities. They're really propelling the characters, like with the Grunwald Captain America run, where he decides he doesn't want to be Captain America anymore, so he's just the captain. And then his colors change. There's a different Captain America who's way more violent, and it's just stuff like that is like really interesting to me, like how they write. And then you got Craven's Last Hunt with Spider-Man. Like, these writers were really like pushing these characters to like their limits. They were really like they just were on it. Like, and I missed that kind of writing, like where there were actual stakes. Like, these characters were really in life or death situations. It was a beautiful time. And then, of course, you still got Shonen. During the 80s, you got JoJo's Bizarre, which is a huge inspiration for me as well. You got Dragon Ball, you got One Piece, you got so many other things that really heavily inspired me. Right now, I feel like the greatest manga is Chainsaw Man by Fujimoto. What he just taps into is just beautiful. So, yeah, all that stuff.
That is so awesome. Yeah, I'm always curious because everyone, obviously has a different journey into comics, reading comics and consuming them. What type of stakes can we see in your books? What type of limits are you pushing when you're creating a comic?
So, like, when I'm creating a comic, I always get like my little notebook and I draw out the cast of characters. So I'll draw the cast of characters, and then I'll be like, okay, how do these characters interact with each other? What do these characters want? How are they the foil of one another? Like, how would they fight? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they want? Because I've noticed with just media overall, when we all talk about shows, we all talk about our favorite characters, or we always talk about what a character did or a character said or things like that. Most people don't even describe the plot to you, but they'll talk about their character that they like. So I really relate to that. I'm very character driven. I'm all about what the characters want and how do they move the plot. How do they, interact with each other? How do they backstab each other? So when you're reading one of my books, like, always notice the characters always have their own motivations, and that the way that they interact with each other is how they further their own motivations or things like that. So I'm very much into that the characters are driving the story. The characters are what attracting people.
Yeah, I mean, because characters ultimately are what we relate to the most, right? That's who we identify with. That's who when we're reading it, that's who we envision ourselves as. So I love that you're definitely nailing that part too. So 2021 looked like another busy year for you as well, coming out with, it looks like 3 new titles, 4. Penny Peculiar, Clover Cassidy, Shrivel, and Blue Veal. I mean, you were a busy man. Was this like something where quarantine just kind of held you up and you just kind of, put some work in? Or, what inspired you to come out with so many different titles in like the last 2-3 years?
So I'm always a fan of having all my influences and all my personal likes like leak into what I do. So, like, with a Penny Peculiar, I'm a fan of like Scott Pilgrim and like romance kind of books and stuff like that. So Penny Peculiar is an offset of that. It's my version of that. It's literally my interest in that genre like manifesting into itself. And plus, I deal with things that Penny does in the book as well, like where you have these separate personalities and voices, and they're all like competing, but they're all a part of you at the end of the day. So it's like that book is like, how do you manage all those things, and how does that take you through life? And it's pretty entertaining too.
That's so awesome.
With Clover Cassidy, I just love westerns, man. They're fucking epic. Ever since I played Red Dead Redemption, like back in 2010, that fucking game changed my life.
Did you play the second one?
Nah.
What?
Because I heard the second one was trash, bro. So I was
no, dude. The story for the second one is so good, especially since it like intertwines with the first one. Like it does such a good job.
Yeah, but I heard they turned my John into a simp, bro. I was like, I can't do that.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I was like, no, not John Marston, not the one that I remember. Oh man. So
hey, we have some people in chat real quick too. We got J. Michael Miller saying steaks and comics are rare, but I like them well done. But I like what you did there. And then CM Holy over on Twitch saying, "Hey, my boy Lanier." So it looks like you got a fan over on Twitch.
Yeah, that's my guy, Mr. Moses, brother from another mother.
Yeah, saying one of the best creators out there. Got some high praise.
Man, I'm real humble, y'all. But
he's like,
y'all want to anoint the king. Like, how am I to say no? No, but not to get off sidetrack. Back to what we were talking about with Shrivel. I love horror. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I love horror. I love Junji Ito, Uzumaki. That's a huge influence. I love Black Hole, Charles Burns. Man, dude. So Shrivel was me creating my own horror story, and Shrivel 2 is probably my favorite comic that I've written so far. Probably. Well, that's not to say that what I'm working on now isn't my favorite, because I feel like that's my best work. But you guys will see it. You know.
And last but not least, it looks like we have Little Weapon coming out 2022. When's that slated to drop? Or that's already out, correct?
Yeah, it's out right now. It's on Webtoons.
So what's the concept behind this? This looks, it looks, the cover looks very deceiving. When I clicked on it, it gave me a warning that it was graphic. So I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that warning there.
It's some violence there. I try to make sure people know that kind of stuff. But so Little Weapon is my homage to Tetsuka, the creator of Astro Boy and stuff like that. I love his work. I love what he did. He's such a pioneer, and I love his art style the most. So I wanted to create a book that had that kind of art style, that cutesy kind of art style. But though his art style is very cutesy, like these characters do some real shit. Like people be dying, it should be going down. So that's what I wanted Little Weapon to be, and I just love Little Weapon. Again, it's the characters for me. It's the setting of so the world is practically turned to shit, and humanity they're at their brink where like they're raising like these kids to start fighting the war too. So Little Weapon, they're literally little weapons, and just what my ideas for where the series is gonna go from here is just wild. Like I really want to tackle all sides. I don't want it to just seem like it's just there's the bad guys and they're the good guys. Like it's some shit done on both sides, and I feel like it's important to illustrate that in a war comic book.
So two things. Love the name. I think it's such a like a, I don't even know what that's called, but like the fact that like they're called Little Weapons and it's a Little Weapon, I love that, because like I didn't think of that at first. I was like, okay, I wonder what this is about, but like that is brilliant. And second, I love the fact that you're kind of exploring both sides of it, because like that's something that we see a lot like anymore, right? Where it's one side gets painted so heavily, and it has a big effect. It turns people against people. It causes division. Why is it so important for you to express that within this comic?
Well, I look back on like literature. I look back on stories like Catch-22. I look back on 1984, Animal Farm, so many other books I could name. I just not coming off the top of my head here. But these authors, the way that they write stories they try to tackle things on a lot of different fronts. You know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
they illustrate all these different mindsets. And shout out to Judge Dredd Apocalypse War too. That was a big one. And you just learn so many different things. Like you just want to make sure you gather all the information needed, because these wars and things like that, they're an accumulation of all these little events that happen throughout a nation's history or whatever, that puts them on a course to clash with another country or whatever the case it is. So it's so many intricate details, and I love history, and I love like setting those things up, because these things get really murky once the blood starts to spill in the water. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so.
the victor always writes history, right? So it's interesting to hear it from both sides too, because oftentimes the loser has kind of the more truer side of things, right?
Yeah. And
So
eventually that does come to pass.
let's start diving into what we're currently here for. I think we did a nice job kind of painting.
Oh wait, shout out to I forgot to mention this, Cody, but the title for Little Weapon, I actually got that title from a Lupe Fiasco song, where he he talked about like child soldiers and stuff, and I remember listening to that a lot as a kid, and it really resonated with me. So I was like, oh, a Little Weapon, like that would be a good title. So shout out to Lupe Fiasco, man.
No, I love that too.
Me.
It's really awesome to hear like how like music was like your first like venture, and then that transition to comics, and kind of how you're still paying tribute to it. So I definitely love that. So let's start breaking into what we're here for. Helms Cross. This is, something. Is this still in the works? Still something you're working on, or is it fully finished?
No, it's fully finished. It's on my website. It's just $5. Yeah, it's my manga epic. So you're journeying through Nordor, and the main character Vali and his team, Cynic, Frida, and then Bernadette, and they're just going on. They're preparing themselves to go on this journey to Helms Cross, where it's this ancient foretold place where all these great warriors and great journeymen have gone. It's kind of like a equivalent to like a One Piece or whatever, And yeah, it's an amazing story. I love it.
So, real quick, we have J. Michael Miller over on YouTube asking a favorite Lupe song.
My favorite Lupe, Gold Watch from The Cool.
I'll have to check that out. I don't think I've heard that one. Music's such a weird thing too, right? Like, I get caught up in just listening to music that I listened to for like the last 5 years that I don't ever explore anything new.
Yeah, no, I love music, man.
Yeah. So, do you have any plans on having your music like making soundtracks for your comics or anything like that?
Oh, hey Cody, I do that already.
Really? Which ones have you made soundtracks for?
Little Weapon, Give Me the Loot, True Science Fiction, Clover Cassidy. I make a song for every new release that I put out. It's all on my website.
How are people like? Do you have like a QR code like so they can?
So once you go on my website, peoples, you'll notice on the top of the screen, it'll have like a song. It'll have a song there, and then you can click that link there, and it'll take you to my Bandcamp. And there's also like a Bandcamp logo on my website as well. You can check everything out.
I like that.
And it's got like all my.
Oh, sorry. How long are the songs? Are the songs like long enough to like where you could read the comic to it, or do you just pretty much put them on loop?
So with Helms Cross, it has a theme song as well. That one's only like 40 or 30 minutes. I try to keep them the length of like, how like TV shows now, they'll have a theme song like a minute long or so, just to retain people's attention, make it catchy, make it quick. You get a good feeling for it, and then boom. So I'm always about that. I'm always about making sure I'm a minimalist. So I make sure that I can get my point across in a short amount of time. It's simple, it's accessible for casual people to check out, because people are very pressed for time these days. So I always make sure you get exactly what you need to know in a minute or less with me.
No,
sometimes
go ahead.
And sometimes certain songs will be longer than that, but yeah, it kind of depends.
I definitely love opening up other senses while like consuming a comic. That's such a cool concept. I love it. And it was almost like a no-brainer. I was like I have to ask because he probably already has it done, but yeah, that is so cool. We have J. Michael Miller saying "Dumb It Down" from The Cool is mine. So
I love that song.
So Helms Cross, Who are we looking at for the protagonist? Or is that are we looking at him right on the cover? You know, can you give us a little bit about him?
Yeah, he's selling the ship right there. His name is Volley. Volley, he wants to follow in the footsteps of his father. He wants to journey to Helms Cross. He wants to be a warrior. He just wants to have that recognition and to deviate from the path of his family, because his family is generally their shipwrights. So they make the ships for people to make the journey to Helms Cross. But he doesn't want to just make the ship. He wants to sail it. He wants to go on his own adventure. And, you know, he's got his rival Cynic with him, his love interest Bernadette, and then Cynic has his fangirl Frida, and she just loves Cynic so much. Like, it's just funny. It's ironic, really. I love characters like that.
You said this was a manga?
Yes, sir.
What was it? Hard to transition from comics to manga? It seems like you kind of have comics on every medium as well, like webtoons and comics and manga. It seems like you're hitting all the fronts.
Yeah, like I said before, I just like to blend all my influences together. So I don't, you know, whatever. That's the thing with me and my comics and my journey. Like, people that are fans of mine, you never know what you're gonna get next, because I'm always experimenting. I'm always doing different things. Like, I'll change whenever. So that's a big strength that I have, and I'm able to just jump into these things. And, you know, with manga, it's easy because it's like I grew up on that, you know? So, like, whether it was Naruto, Bleach, you know, One Piece or whatever, I was just accustomed to those worlds. So it's like I know how to do it. It's like shorthand, you know? So it's just like, yeah. It comes
natural. No, I get that. I get it. It's like everyone asks me, they're like, how do you do this? Like, how do you keep going? I'm like, dude, I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. Like, I just do it. Like,
Right, you just do it, and then, you know, hey.
So what type of world building are readers to experience within Helms Cross? You know, what type of feeling do you want them to get from the environment and the atmosphere within the book?
So when the book starts, there's like a 5-page prologue. So like you get to really understand the history behind the events that follow it. So it's just so much myth making and world building and just things that I personally love in stories. Like, growing up, I used to really love reading like Greek history about, you know, like the gods and all these different myths and things of that nature. So I like to implement that into Helms Cross and all these other books that I do. I really love the history. I love knowing like backstory, and, you know, it fleshes out the world for readers to know that, oh, there's all these events happening before our actual story starts, and it gets you intrigued and knowing what the future of that world, you know, what lies ahead in that.
So I know you kind of give us a breakdown of like characters and stuff, but what does that world building design look like for you when you initially start? You know, where do you even begin? Like, for me, like, I would have no idea like where to even start. So like for you, like creating Helms Cross, you know, ultimately, I guess, where was your starting point?
So I think I'll answer this the broad way. So whenever I'm creating like a new world or a new thing or whatever, I always start with the name. I always want to have a catchy name or a title or something like that. So with like Helms Cross, like the helmsman is the person that, you know, directs the ship, right? So you take the helms, and then the cross, you know, I was thinking like a ravine, something that you can cross, you know, something that you can, you know, go past or whatever. And then I was like, oh yeah, Helms Cross, that'd be a good title. And then like from there, I started thinking about the world, how it looks and just how it operates. Again, I always put all the stuff in my notebook. So like, I'll put all my influences, and then I'll be like, okay, what's the thing that I'll take from that? What's this? What's that? And I'll take everything and I just remix it. And I still attribute that to my hip hop background, because in hip hop, you sample so many different things. You can take some lyrics or some beats or this synth or this, and I incorporate that hip hop mentality into what I do. So I'll watch a movie, I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. Yoink, I'll take some of that. Oh, that's a song. A song, I'll be like, ooh, yoink. And then I'll say, ooh, yoink from a painting, yoink, yoink, yoink. You just take all these stuff and you just mix it together. And then voila, you know, you create something that's unique to yourself. Not necessarily original, because nothing's original. But you create something unique to yourself. You sell it from a perspective that only you can do, and that's what I like to do.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, because like every story has already been told, right? There's really nothing new out there, but there's something new that you can tell, like in your own words. We have Ichthus over on YouTube stopping in to say what is up. How are you doing, Ichthus? Thank you for stopping in. Appreciate everyone being so active in chat today. So with Helms Cross, I mean, what type of art style can we see? Is this, what is it going to be colored? Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what to expect from like the interiors?
So it's a traditional like black and white manga. It's very anime manga influence, of course. Yeah, just about what I would say. Yeah, pretty cool.
We have Ichthus pretty much just asked like the same question too. The choice of limited color palette for the cover. And then it wanted to know what the color is going to look like through the whole book. I do like the cover a whole lot. What was some of your inspirations when you talked to your artist for it?
Oh yeah, shout out to No Brain Zine. He did the cover for that. My influences were I actually know it exactly. It was Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. There's one poster or cover in particular where Link is on this boat, and I was like, oh, that'd be epic if I changed the scale and I did this and that in my own way. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Link, The Legend of Zelda. That was a huge influence for Helms Cross as far as like some visual aspects and things of that nature.
Did you get a chance to play Link's Awakening on the Switch when they remade it?
Yes, that's the
so good. So good. So good. Oh, I love it.
I've beat 2 Zelda games so far. It was Link's Awakening and Link Between Worlds. I still haven't beat Breath of the Wild yet. And damn,
Majora's Mask. Missing Majora's Mask.
Oh God, I just can't. I'm sorry. It's just the time constraints, bro. And then the rewind.
My God.
I'm like, I can't do that.
I have it tattooed right there. Ouch.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh, sorry. I just can't. I'm just like, oh my God.
Everybody's entitled to one wrong opinion. It's all right. I get it.
Yeah, shit. Fuck it.
So, without spoiling too much, what type of antagonist can we see from Helms Cross? Is there any big villain, any big thing that the readers can look forward to?
So looking forward to it, you're going to see the clash of different nations and ideologies and these different warriors and how these countries and these separate islands and cultures, they all kind of work together in a way, and they clash and things of that nature. You don't know, there isn't an antagonist in this story as of yet, because I just wanted to really get people invested in their world and their land and, and Bali and his crew first. So that was very important to me. It's a really opening chapter. You want to know the history of their world first. And then from this issue going forward, you're going to start to see more antagonistic forces and things like that kind of come into play. But, yeah, right now they're all just kind of figuring each other out, learning how to be a team, learning their different abilities. And Helms Cross, they fight using medium, so they channel their energy into particular weapons and things of that nature. So with Volley, for instance, he uses his sword, so he channels his energy into a sword. You got Bernadette, she has a little lantern, so she can use like blue fire from it. Frida, she has rosary beads, and Seneki has a shield. So they each channel their powers into these mediums.
I love that. I love that fighting system so much. I gotta ask, what drove you to do that? I mean, that is like some next level stuff.
Shoot, man, it kind of reminds me of Bleach. You know how in Bleach you have different Zanpakutos, all these different swords and whatever, and they always change, and they interact with that character's personality and stuff like that. So that was it. That was an influence for sure. I love that kind of concept. Every character has their kind of weapon or whatever.
So I noticed you kind of put some phrasing in there that might lead us to speculate there's going to be an issue 2. So when are we kind of getting an idea of when that's going to drop? Is that going to be 2023, 2024?
Just wait on it, guys.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I don't want to spoil too much. People can buy this Is this the physical you can buy, or is it just digital?
It is just digital as of now, but I do have a physical copy coming this fall, and it's going to be coming with another news story. One that's also very fantasy inspired, but on a darker spectrum. So they're both going to be released in what I'm calling double fantasy. So It's going to be both in a little manga book for people.
No, I love that too. And for anyone that's interested, right there is the website to go check it out. It's only $5 to get it. How many pages did you say it was again?
30 pages.
30 pages for $5. That's such an outstanding price. So real quick, before we dive into what's next, we kind of skipped over From Scratch Comics. So let's go ahead and kind of like, build into that, and then we'll break into what's next for you.
Yeah. So, do you want to know like what?
Yeah, if you whatever you want to talk about with it, where you started it, what it is.
So From Scratch Comics is just my little indie label. That's the banner that I publish all my books under. I call it From Scratch because prior to making comics, of course, I was making music, and I made From Scratch records. And the ideology of that is I'm coming from nothing, so I'm taking everything that I have from scratch, and I'm creating these things. So with From Scratch Comics, of course, it's just all from scratch, just all off the top of my head, what I write down, what I'm influenced by, just taking everything and then putting out a particular piece of work. And the logo in particular I made after I was doing a lot of research on different logos and brands and things, because at first I just had the regular box logo, like the old school kind of ones where you have it in the corner. But then I was like, there's so many stories that I like to tell, it's kind of limiting me just having that. So I was like, okay, that's when I made the rectangular logo or whatever, because it's more universal, that I think it can represent more. And yeah, that's kind of my thing.
I love that.
I just love that color.
It took me 80 interviews before I started calling them indie creator interviews, because I used to call them indie comic interviews, but not everyone I interview is a comic writer. Sometimes they write manga, sometimes they write webtoons, which they might not classify as a traditional comic. So I get that, being more exclusive, or to offer as many properties as you can. I wanted to kind of dive into From Scratch Comics because I also noticed that I didn't really see much in terms of crowdfunding. It looks like everything's kind of self-published.
Yeah, I don't do any crowdfunding.
Yeah, what's the reasoning behind that? It seems like, because you put out so much work too. So I mean, it's that is outstanding. Is that all just self-funded out of your own pocket?
Yep, all self-funded.
So what are you, are you relying on sales from your website to kind of fund everything? How are you doing things to get the ball rolling for you?
So it's either that I'm always at work all the time, but of course I still do my my comic book duties while I'm there or when I'm off or whatever. But I get money from book sales, online sales. But for me, I just think it was my upbringing where, I was taught to get it myself. I wasn't taught to there wasn't a big emphasis on us asking for things, and I don't know, that's just my mentality. I feel like I have to invest my own money into everything that I do 100%. Not to knock anybody that does crowdfunding or whatever, but for me, I just love the idea that I did this, I got it put together, I put my money into it, I hustled to get it done. That's just kind of my thing. I just love to know that, I funded it 100% myself. That's just kind of my mentality to things. I just love that. And that was instilled in me at a young age. So it just kind of stuck. I don't really do crowdfunding or none of that. I tried one time, but I just wasn't in it. The promotion and stuff of it, and,
Yeah, the promoting seems like it's the worst part.
Yo, shout out to everybody that does it and they do it successfully. Because it is a skill in of itself. It's just that for me, I'm always thinking well, that time that I'm spending promoting the Kickstarter or whatever, I feel like I'm kind of personally, I feel like I'm waiting for someone else to do something for me that I could do myself. That's just I get
it. I grew up kind of a similar mentality, where. For me, though, it's a little bit different. Oh, look, my cat. I love when they get in a little cat tent live on stream. Oh, yeah. But for me, it's always I don't want to take something that someone else might need more than me when I can do it myself. That's a big thing for me. Like there might be someone out there who could use that way more than me. And I know that's kind of a dumb thing. Everyone's like, oh, that's a dumb mentality. I can't help it. That's just who I am. Like there's someone out there who needs it more than me. I can do it myself. Might be a little bit harder, but I know I can do it, you know?
Yeah, and then like just the people that I idolize, bro. Like Kanye West, Steve Jobs, you know what I'm saying? Like these real self-made people, like it's kind of hard for me to be like for me to like do like crowdfunding. It's so hard for me because I'm just like I need to do it myself. Like I guess it's like I just need to, you know, put it together myself and know that I did it myself. And I don't know, I'm just really big on that. You know?
Speaking of things that you're doing yourself, this gives us the perfect segue to what's next. You're going to be working on something that's a little bit different from comics, right?
Yeah, my first novella.
So give us a little bit of a breakdown of what that's going to be about. Do you have like a title or anything yet?
I can't wait for you guys to read it. I swear to God. So it's separated into 3 parts. It's called Keem Shore. And basically, again, like I just love creating these settings. So Keem Shore is like this eastern coastal kind of city, right? And you know, it's got a lighthouse. It's got that misty kind of atmosphere. It's by the coast. It's by the water and the waves and the mysterious nature of the ocean, because you never really know what's out there. And you know, like it just breeds this kind of storytelling. The first part is more science fiction based. And you know, it's a drama, it's a romance, it's so many other things. Our main character, his name is Declan. He moves to Keem Shore because he has a job at this mysterious location, and I just can't wait for you guys to read it. It's just beautiful.
You
Some
are
of my best
about this. I love it. I love it. Is it harder? Do you find it's harder to write a comic or a novella? Like, is it harder containing yourself to the script of a comic, or is it, you know, do you find yourself maybe like losing it, like with the openness of a novella?
You know what's crazy, Cody? Like, it took 29 years for me to write my first novel, this novella here. And just during the journey of that, making like the 21 comics that's published now, all the songs that I wrote, all the videos that I've created and stuff like that, all these things prepared me a lot better for writing this novel than I thought. Because I do have a particular way with words. Like I know how to structure phrases. I know how to say things. Because, you know, my songwriting background. I also know the visual aspect of things, how to describe things, from whether I'm describing like a scene in a comic book or, you know, just everything that I've done led to this moment. So it was just beautiful to finally like be a novelist and like to write and just illustrate something with my words and really breathe life into these characters. I never in a million years thought I was going to write an actual book, but I am, and I'm doing it. And I got so many other ideas that are in line. And Keem Shore is just the culmination of all that. And I just cannot wait for people to read it. It's just such a beautiful story to me. Like all 3 parts are different, but you know, they all still, you know, venture into things that I'm interested in, whether it's like the, you know, thriller or sci-fi or crime or, you know, whatever. It's just all these things mixed together, and it's just beautiful. The characters, they really pop off. Yeah, it's just a beautiful world to inhabit, you know. So
when can we expect part 1 to drop?
It's coming very soon. I'm just waiting on a few other little things, but let's say this summer. Okay,
yeah, that's closer than I thought. Man, this is so awesome. So without spoiling too much, why should people read this? You know, get your big seller right here. What would you say to anyone that's watching, that's, you know, wondering if they should read this or not? What would you say to them why they should?
I would say you should read it because I'm tackling this novel from an outsider's perspective. Like I don't have any formal training or anything like that. There isn't any rules that I'm following. Like I strongly feel that I'm bridging a new path forward for literature and for the genre of science fiction and all these different genres, and how I'm creating this book. It's it's new, and I feel like people are gonna. It's like a touchstone moment. I feel like when people come, for instance, again, I'm gonna bring them up. Kanye West. he's not known for making shoes and stuff like that. But when he dropped those Yeezys, it made an impact because he was an outsider. Outsiders, when they join something new, like they bring something, they just bring this reckless energy where they don't follow any rules. And you've seen the Yeezys, like them shoes. Some of them shoes look weird as hell. Like you would think like, why would somebody wear that? But then you be thinking like, yo, that's kind of fun.
You know, those slides do, those slides do be looking pretty fire. I'm gonna be honest.
Yo, bro, like, they do kind of look fire, right? So like, that's how I'm approaching like literature. That's how I'm approaching it. I'm coming in as an outsider. I'm doing something that's completely different than what other people are doing. Like I'm tackling it in a new way. So I would say for people, it's a breath of fresh air. You're gonna love it. The world that I created is just intoxicating to be in, and it's just amazing, man. I can't wait. Oh, y'all
that's gonna be so awesome. I feel the energy just radiating. It's getting me hyped for the rest of my day. Speaking of that, let's begin to wrap things up. I do have one last question I want to ask you, and that's as someone who's created 21 plus comics, creating a novella, and everything else. You are probably one of the most experienced people that I could ask this question to. For anyone that's watching and they're struggling getting their own idea started or just getting the creative process started at all, what type of advice would you give them to just get going with it?
I would say like the first thing you should probably do, as basic as it sounds, I would say get like a little notebook. And then if you have an idea for a story, write out the story's outline, literally draft the cast of characters. Like write all the relevant characters that you need, right? And then from there, you just start to build around the plot that you want to have and the characters and how they fit. How do they move the plot? How do they all? It's like a chessboard, you know. Like all these pieces do certain things to push you to win. So like, you know, think of your story like that. You know, I'm very big on that kind of mindset. Where you're essentially it's just like my directing days, you know what I'm saying? Like you just think of like, how do all these parts come together? Like really think of that. And of course, just don't be afraid to just like put something out, bro. Cause like the first thing you put out, it might be trash or whatever, but you got to start somehow and you have to learn the sting of rejection. Rejection is important. Failure is important. It motivates you to do more. It motivates you to improve. Like before I got to this point, I failed at a lot of things. Like I was, boy, let me tell you, like I was trash, bro. Like I was trash at certain things. But like as you go on and you incorporate more of your interests and your personality into your creations, you know, like the more like it'll coalesce and you can create something that resonates with people. So that's a big thing I would say. Like, don't be afraid to put it out and don't be afraid to fail. Like, bro, like I find it admirable. If you fail at something, like, bro, kudos to you because you actually did it. You know how many people? I know so many people, the most creative people you've ever met in your life. They won't put out nothing because they're afraid. They're like, oh, well, what will people think? Like, well, what do you do? You don't know what people are thinking. You don't put it out. And even if they did think it was trash or whatever, that should motivate you to be better. Like, I don't know, you gotta have that like Kobe Bryant, he has a Mamba mentality. Like you just gotta really push it and go there.
No, I love
it. All starts and ends with you. Like no other forces outside of you can do this. It all starts with you. So it's willpower, it's so many other things that you got to incorporate, man. So don't ever be afraid.
I love it. That was that was inspirational. I got some fire underneath me to get going with the rest of today. Lanier, thank you so much for coming on, breaking down Helms Cross and your whole entire history. I had such an awesome chat. I can't wait to see more about this novella when it comes out later this summer. For anyone that's watching, here is the website once again. Are we going to be able to see that novella drop on there as well?
Yeah, it is going to be exclusive to the website. It's probably going to be just like $2 for people. It's just really easy read. Part 1 is just such a fun time. Like man, I can't wait for you guys to read.
Dude, let's go. With that being said, guys, it is.
It will have a soundtrack with it too. I do have a soundtrack to go with that piece in particular. So it's just great.
Dude, hell yeah. I can't wait. This is so awesome. I'm excited too. For everyone watching, I hope you guys are busting with energy too. This was such a fantastic sit down. I appreciate it so much. It is time for us to wrap things up. It is a beautiful Saturday morning and there is a lot happening. We are hosting our official Ask Me Anything later on this evening. We're celebrating the 100th interview. You are officially interview 102. So let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 6 months, baby. In 6 months, got to hit that ground hustling, you know?
Let's go.
Let's go. So with that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. I hope you all have a beautiful day, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.